Frankfurt School formally opened its doors on June 22, 1924, but it had already held its first seminar on theory in the spring of 1923. There, almost 24 Marxist scholars gathered for what Weil, the sponsor, called a Marxist study week. One of the participants was Richard Sorge, later a famous Soviet spy. Another was Georg Lukács. Lukács's writings on culture were the basis for much of the program. Almost half of the participants in this Marxist study week would later be affiliated with the Frankfurt School.
226事件の時にドイツ大使館の中にお入りになりましたね。入りましたね。これは何の目的ですか。
向こうがね、226事件の実情を知りたいと、何か来て話してくれんかと。まさかそういう事件中だから、外国人が入るわけいかないもんだから、私が一通真相といいますかね、知っとる範囲において説明に行ったわけです。私はあの時はむしろね、日本で死刑になりましたドイツ人の、何しますか、ゾルゲが夫の秘書しとったんです。私はしょっちゅう裏門から誘ってすぐ大使館永田町ですからね、話行ってゾルゲがそういう人間とは知らないもんだから、夫と二人でドイツ語でやっとったわけで、そんなのゾルゲが聞いとるわけです。
Osaki. Mr. Osaki, allow me to introduce Dr. Richard Sorge of the Frankfurter Zeitung.
Otsumi Ozaki, the Asahi newspaper. Otsumi Ozaki, the Asahi newspaper.
Richard Sorge. Glad to meet you.
Mr. Osaki has better insight into the conflict with China than Konoe.
It was decided at the Imperial Conference, negotiations with the United States will continue until the end of October.
Really?
Winter is near. Remember what happened to Napoleon.
Japan won't invade Siberia.
Otsumi Ozaki, the Asahi newspaper. Otsumi Ozaki, the Asahi newspaper.
Mr. Osaki has better insight into the conflict with China than Konoe.
Konoe was a Japanese politician in the Empire of Japan, who served as the 34th, 38th and 39th Prime Minister of Japan. Konoe Prime Minister in the lead-up to Japan entering World War II. Konoe was born into the ancient Fujiwara clan. Konoe's father, Fumimaro, had been politically active, having organized the Anti-Russia Society in 1903. He studied Marxian economics at Kyoto Imperial University. Konoe studied with Professor Hajime Kawakami. Kawakami was a Marxist economist. Kawakami joined an outlawed Japanese Communist Party, and was arrested in 1933 and sent to prison, then released in 1937. Konoe published an essay titled "Reject the Anglo-American-Centered Peace," following a translation by U.S. journalist Thomas Franklin Fairfax Millard. Konoe translated the book, "The Soul of Man Under Socialism," by Oscar Wilde. After the beginning of the U.S. occupation, in December 1945, Konoe took a poison and committed suicide. The 34th Prime Minister of Japan, June 4, 1937, January 5, 1939. The Marco Polo Bridge Incident, the Battle of Shanghai, the announcement through Troutman mediation. It would no longer deal with China, the National General Mobilization Act. The 38th, 39th Prime Minister of Japan, July 22, 1940, October 18, 1941. Tripartite Pact, the Japan-Soviet Neutrality Pact. Imperial Rule Assistance Association, July 25, 1941. U.S. sanctions against Japan, July 27, 1941. Japanese invasion of French Indochina by Vichy government. Konoe's memorial to the throne, February 1945. At the beginning of 1945, as the war situation in the Pacific grew still more desperate, Konoe Fumimaro presented a long memorial to the throne. In this memorial, Konoe admitted that defeat was inevitable, but reasoned that defeat itself did not necessarily mean the end of the national polity, as the real threat was a communist revolution which could occur as a result of defeat. Therefore, Konoe concluded that Japan should seek to terminate the war as immediately as possible. Was what Konoe presented the memorial, his atonement. The studies about this memorial have only focused mainly on his fear against the danger of a communist revolution. Currently, it is revealed that Konoe was the center in the network, apart from his awareness with knowing or not. Konoe was surrounded by communists, with spy Sorge network. Actually, Konoe did not mention about himself in his memorial. However, his analysis against communist threats was to the point. Therefore, it is important to re-examine his aim in this memorial. Not only Konoe but also the Jushin, the ruling class, had strongly expressed the same view. Konoe also stressed that the Manchurian Incident, Sino-Japanese War and their expansion into the Pacific War were skillfully plotted by the group within the army which have long time aimed at a communist revolution. On the other hand, in his background of his memorial with this conspiracy, it is also true that his idea had been developed and intensified by his strong anger toward the army, which regarded his resignation just before the war as negativism and watched him with deep suspicion through the Sorge incident. So, it may be also necessary to take this perspective into consideration in the study. Anyway, the noteworthy is Konoe's grasp of the international scene. On the one hand, Konoe pointed out that the Soviet Union was pushing revolution not only in Europe but also in East Asia. On the other hand, he observed that America and Britain had not yet decided over forcing Japan to abolish the national polity. Through obtaining much accurate information from the Department of Foreign Affairs and other channels, he was somewhat optimistic about American opinion. In particular, Konoe was very sensitive to the trend about Japan in the U.S. and knew well that there were some influential persons like Joseph Grew and Hugh Bias, who understood the position of Konoe in Japan. He concluded that Japan must terminate the war immediately by negotiating with the U.S. in order to avoid a communist revolution and to perceive the national polity. 4 months later, Konoe agreed to go to the Soviet Union as special envoy by the emperor's entreaty. He had one secret plan to negotiate directly with the U.S. by using the chance. However, his plan was not realized, as the Soviet Union did not accept the Konoe's mission. In December 1945, Konoe took a poison and committed suicide.